YouTube land, we're already joined by Instagram Live. So this is a new process for us. I just want to jump in here and introduce myself. My name is Brickman Allen. I am joined by Andrea Davis from Better Screen Time, the founder of that organization, and Nathan Webb, who is the founder of Bullies Be Gone. And I can tell you, I am super stoked to be part of this little panel that we've created here, because these two are powerhouses. They are just changing the dynamic about the way we see technology, the way we're raising kids in a technology-rich environment, and everything that is going on in the world around, because we are definitely in just some really strange, peculiar time. And we need experts like these two that can jump in and help us. So for those of you that know them, wave on Instagram, whatever it is, put a thumbs up, drop a comment, tell us where you're seeing us from if you're on Facebook or YouTube. But Andrea and Nate, thanks for joining me today.
Well, thank you, man.
Thank you. We're just excited. This is going to be awesome.
So I love the topics that we have for the sake of the kids. And I think that, kids, it's everybody. It's the 5-year-old that's just barely starting to figure out how to play on an iPad, or maybe they're starting younger. I don't know. My youngest is 9, but we're going up to the teenagers, and whatnot. Nate, you got some young ones. I mean, you don't let them touch technology, so right?
Nope. No, I got a 2-year-old and a 4-month-old, so we're steering clear of that stuff.
Yeah, you don't even go near that, right? Well, awesome. Well, if you guys are ready, then I will go ahead and jump in. I'm going to speak first, and I'm going to be followed by Andrea for Better Screen Time, and then followed at the very end by Nate for Bullies Be Gone. And at the very end, we're going to have a Q&A. So if you're just joining us on Facebook Live or YouTube Live, make sure you hit a comment, drop it in there with questions, and we'll make sure that we are doing our best to answer those at the very end. If you're on Instagram Live and you're just joining us, go ahead and just add the comment towards the end when Nate is talking, so it doesn't get lost in the shuffle, because we definitely want to answer your questions. So for those of you that are watching with Instagram, you guys are just going to see all 3 of us, but I'm going to actually take Nate and Andrea off for Facebook Live, and I'm going to share what I've got prepared for you guys. I want to introduce myself. So my name is Brickman Allen, or Brick Allen. I live in Mesa or Gilbert, Arizona, and I have been speaking to different youth groups for the last 18 years. And my specialization, and the reason why I'm here today joining with these powerhouse individuals, is that I am an expert in trauma and in post-traumatic gains or growth. And you might think that that's a weird topic for me to be speaking about in regards to youth and kids, and for the sake of the kids. And if you'll just kind of bear with me, I'm going to fully introduce myself, and I'm going to explain to you why trauma is such a touchy topic right now for the youth and for kids. So to begin that, I want to share with you a couple of things about me. So the reason why I am a bit of an expert in trauma, and you guys can see this, let me share my screen on Instagram, is from the time I was younger, I dealt with trauma on different levels. So yes, I was taped to a tree in high school. I was bullied relentlessly in high school. I had death threats in high school. I dealt with all of that at a young age. And then in my early 20s, I had a home invasion where the intruder came in and he actually stabbed me 7 times. I was given 0% chance to live by one surgeon, where another just gave me a 10% chance to live. All these traumatic events have helped me to understand how trauma affects us psychologically, and how it affects us at different times in our growth as individuals. And so let me go back to sharing with you a couple of insights and points that I want to make sure that you understand. So when we're speaking about trauma is this interesting thing. It used to be that we would talk about trauma in these big lights. You talk about Columbine, the shooting at Columbine High School, and all those different things. But today, trauma is becoming a totally different animal. Because to simply put it, trauma is any event that brings on emotional distress. And it comes at varying heights. It used to be that for trauma to affect us, it had to be this giant, big thing that just kind of tore our world apart. But the problem is that with youth and with kids, their emotional and their psychological stability is changing because of technology. And the reason for that is when we look at all the different things that come along with hold on, let me give you this right here. Here we go. So this is why trauma is becoming such a big thing. It was in a survey of 135 San Francisco State students, and students who use their phones, the most reported higher levels of feeling isolated, lonely, depressed, and anxious. They believe the loneliness is partly a consequence of replacing face-to-face interaction with a form of communication where body signals and other language cannot be interpreted. Now, what does that mean? That means that we went from a place where kids were getting this emotional, social, physical connection with family members and with friends around them that was creating a level of stability that when trauma came, they had a social dynamic that helped them deal with trauma. And so they needed a bigger traumatic event to actually initiate a post-traumatic stress disorder or any type of trauma in their life. What's happening now, they're finding, is that kids, because they have no social interaction, there are so many kids that are being glued to screens, electronics, video games, especially right now with COVID, how they're on the screen all day long without that social interaction. When a small trauma comes, it affects them as if it's a big trauma. So what does that mean? That means that we're developing a society where kids are having trauma at a younger age, which makes them more susceptible to having post-traumatic stress disorder in the future. And again, the reason goes back to the fact that we're losing them to electronics, and that is their social interaction, but it's missing the nonverbal cues, it's missing the physical touch, and it's missing the physical activity that comes especially for younger kids when they're interacting with other individuals. And it also creates their identity. Now, when I was in school, my identity was based off what I could do on the playground when I was a kid, a little kid in school, in elementary school. And as I got into high school, part of my identity was who I was. I was known as being a wakeboarder. I was known as, having horses and being a cowboy. All those things were my identity. Well, now my identity is something I create through social media and an imagination. And it becomes this place that isn't real. So when real trauma comes, I don't know how to interact. I don't know how to take that trauma in stride, and I get lost in the shuffle. And so what we're talking about today is the biggest thing, is that we're going to discuss how do we handle this technology-rich environment. And that's really something that Andrea is expert at. So I'm really looking forward to her recommendations on a technology-rich environment and how do we handle that? How do we create a healthy environment? And I'm excited to listen to Nate speak. He's got this amazing podcast, Bullies Be Gone, that you got to go check out. But what he deals with is how do we give these kids the strength and durability to stand strong? Because the world is going to throw these curveballs at them. So the way I see this is that Andrea is going to help us understand what we can do to prepare these kids and to prepare ourselves before the trauma occurs, so that when it does happen, we've already established a great foundation where they're not socially isolated and they're not withdrawn and they don't feel alone and depressed and anxiety because they don't have that physical interaction and that personal interaction. And what I'm looking forward with Nate is Nate's going to teach us about how do they become durable. And I call that the time during the trauma, the crisis. When that trauma sets in, Nate's going to teach us how do we have stability? How do we be strong? And how do we prepare ourselves for the future? And so before I turn the title over to them, I want to talk to those of us that maybe have kids that have experienced the trauma already. I have a 16-year-old son, an amazing kid, that he was bullied relentlessly. And I got to blame myself. So my name is Brick. I've told you that. But what you don't know is when I started high school, I was 5 feet tall and I weighed less than 100 pounds. So you got this trifecta. A very little guy, height-wise, very light guy you can throw around with probably one of the toughest names that you can come up with. And that led to a lot of my bullying. Well, my oldest son's name is Rockwell, and we call him Rock. And he went into high school and started high school at about 80 pounds and 5 feet tall. and he got bullied relentlessly. And unfortunately, I was not at the place of understanding to know how to prepare him for that trauma that was coming. But I definitely knew how to help him after that trauma occurred. I want to share with you just briefly a couple of those things. So one of the greatest things that you can do for somebody who has experienced that trauma and to help them recover from it is to make sure there's a connection there, and a connection that is not only verbal but physical as well, and one where you go in to this individual, this child. So I went to Rockwell and I said, Rockwell, he'd just gotten bullied. He'd gotten choked out in the locker room at school. He'd been picked on relentlessly, pushed on the ground, previously been beat up at a football game. And I just sat him down and I said, Rockwell, how are you doing? How are you handling this? And then I popped a big question I wanted to ask. I said, Rockwell, our family, we're all about faith. We believe in God, and that's just who we are. And we believe that God has a plan for us. So if that's what we believe, why do you think God is allowing this to happen? And the key to this is I can't force him to talk. That's the absolute wrong thing. But I posed the question and I was patient. And it doesn't matter if it takes him 3 days, 3 weeks, a year. Just remind them, this is my question. And Rockwell had an amazing answer. And that developed into a conversation that turned into this opportunity for us to discuss really the positives that were coming out of the negative trauma that occurred. And so the way that you have post-traumatic growth, or post-traumatic gains, as I like to call it, is you have to help the individual that's experienced the trauma to find the positive. It can be the smallest thing. For Rockwell, the biggest positive for him is that someday he knew he was going to grow a little bit bigger, probably get as big as his dad. I graduated 6 foot and 180 pounds. And he said that now he knows what it feels like to be bullied. And not only is he not going to bully anybody, but he will stand up for those that were bullied. I talk about the most amazing moment in a father's life is understanding that your child has got something figured out. But it only happened because I recognized the trauma occurred, and I took that step of creating a safe environment and patiently going to him and trying to create a conversation. Now, if that conversation doesn't occur, it's a very simple thing that what you do is you create a tradition, a process of repetitive exercise that you do together. Now, what does that mean? It can be a hike, it can be a nightly walk. You don't even have to say anything though. Just going out and getting your body into a repetitive moment has proven through studies to help us clear our minds and to get into safer places in our minds to process things. So if you have a child that's struggling and has gone through some type of trauma, to say, hey, we're going to go on a walk every night. Everybody else is going to stay here, just you and me, and we're going to go on a walk. We're going to walk around the block. It's going to be 5 minutes. You don't have to say anything. But when you get out there, you don't even have to ask about the trauma. Just say, hey, what's your favorite song right now? Why is that your favorite song? Create an environment that allows you to ask those hard questions that can turn into a positive conversation. There's so much more we can do. And so I ask you, if you're out there and you're just wondering, what else can we do to help these kids that are reaching these small traumas that are affecting their life? Reach out to any one of us. We all have techniques. We all have methods of doing it. These are the methods that just seem to be most consistent and found through studies to be the most promising. So that's our introduction. That's what we're going to talk about a little bit more today, is helping our kids in this crazy life. I just basically wanted to introduce myself, explain that trauma, give you a little bit of idea about what happens if it's already happened. But I want to bring Nate and Andrea back on, maybe discuss a little bit what I just shared with you all, and then we're going to go on and have Andrea speak after that. So let me invite them in. For those of you on Instagram Live, they're already here, but we're going to bring them back for Facebook Live and YouTube Live.
Back.
Yay.
Man, thanks, Rick. That was awesome. Woof.
I appreciate it.
Talk about maturity for your kid. Man, that's crazy.
He's not mature in all ways. I mean, he still struggles. He doesn't turn in a lot of homework assignments and everything like that. But that was a huge gain. That was a win for us. That he's got something figured out and can see that positive. And I think that's one of the great lessons that we can learn that you won't learn in a book.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things that really stood out to me, and that I teach a lot, is a relationship first approach. And that's a big part of my message at Better Screen Time, because I think we can focus so much on the problem. So, in your case, the problem was this bullying, right? And initially, I think we want to like nip it in the bud. Like, let's get rid of these kids that are causing this, and let's like, what do we need to do? But instead, like how you turn this into a teaching moment. And then, like you said, you started this tradition of going on a walk, and instead you're building your relationship with your child, as well as really helping him develop his character development, which is so amazing.
No, and that's key. And like you said, we can't always get rid of the bullies. I know Nate's got some amazing techniques to help bullies get past being bullies and be better. He also has some amazing techniques to deal with them. But when you can't change the circumstance, you change the reaction.
Yeah,
Well,
and the dynamic changes.
Well, that's exactly it. I mean, there's only so much we can control. Your boy can't control his bullies. He can't control, but what he can control is how he treats others and how he goes about and lives his life. And then as he lives his life how he wants to be and is the person who he wants to, all the other stuff kind of trivializes in the back.
And that's the whole thing. I love that word, trivializes. I can't even say it, but just such a great word, right? You made it up. No, you didn't make it up. That's one of those big educated words. It's so true, right? I mean, that's the whole key is we want our kids to see that those things that 5 years, 10 years down the road doesn't matter, number one, and in the moment doesn't dictate who they are. I mean, we want those things to be trivialized and become obsolete as time progresses on. So that's a great point. Thank you, Nate.
Yeah,
awesome.
And I was just going to mention, I also loved at the beginning how you were just talking about the experiences that our kids are having and actually the experiences that they're not having because they're on a screen. And, just last week, I know Nate's familiar with this, but, we've heard the Instagram and Facebook are considering creating an Instagram for kids 13 and younger. Yes. And of course, we're very down with that. And I just my gut reaction was like, okay, what do we know about what kids need? And I made my list of just off the cuff, 40 things kids need. And one of the things that came to my mind was just kids need to ride a bike, crash, skin their knee, and have to deal with it, be a mile from home. And no kid is going to experience that. They're sitting on home, sharing photos on Instagram. And I think that it's just a perfect example of that post-traumatic gains, as you talk about, what do our kids learn from that, from skinning their knee? It seems like such a simple thing, but we can't discount that is such a major part of growing up.
No, that you think about the whole fact that for us, skinning our knee was we went home and told our mom, and our mom kissed it, put it on it, whatever it was, and we were better. The biggest problem with it is that is a traumatic event because it happens so rare, and they don't know what to do, and they look around. There's no support group. They don't know how to get support. Some parents are stuck to their phone so much that when the kid comes in crying, they actually put their phone down in disgust. And it's just it's the reaction that throws the kid away from, oh, this could have been an amazing opportunity to bring some comfort to our child, but now it's a traumatic event that's heightened. And that's why we're seeing this trauma is the kids see these little events that we saw as little events as big, traumatic, serious things because they just don't happen to them every day like they should.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the dangerous world we live in. And so, Andrea, if you can educate us, enlighten us, teach us how we can, because technology is not going away. And I love that you have that concept. A lot of people are like, let's just get rid of technology, take it from your kids. But no, you want a technology healthy environment because it's not going away. And we need to teach them how to self-regulate and self-govern with these things. And I love your approach to it. So I'm so excited to listen to you. And so, Nate, unless you have anything else you want to add before we jump in.
No,
I love Andrea to go for it.
Suck it to us, Andrea.
All right. Okay, I'm going to share my screen here and patient for us. Okay. And all right. Is that working? Okay, I know on Instagram, I'm gonna have to grab my phone here now. Okay, sorry guys. I get super motion sick. So like if anybody does something like this to me, I'm like, stop. Okay, so sorry, everybody. All right. All right. How's it looking from your end, Brick? Nate, you see okay? Okay. Awesome. Okay. So I'm probably going to have to try to, you just tell me like when we've talked too long because I can talk all day about this. So this is my family and I know some of you know me, some of you don't, but this is my husband, Tyler. We live in Hood River, Oregon. It's about an hour from Portland. We have 5 kids. So my oldest is 16 already and my youngest is 6. And we were the family that kept their TV in a closet. So this is our TV. You can tell many years ago by the ages of my kids. My husband's an engineer. So he actually built this antenna that you see. And we're watching the Olympics. I know it's a little blurry, can't tell, but that's people in the pool swimming. And that was when we pulled the TV out. So we would pull the TV out for the Olympics. It would sit out for a couple of weeks. And then we would pull it out for like family movie night, like maybe Friday night. Now I realize some of you that are like diehard football fans or, you know, whatever sport you're into, you're like, that would never fly at my house. And I completely get it. But Tyler's not super into sports, so it was fine. And it was just one of those things where I had a really good friend and she was a super amazing reader. And my oldest was about 2 at the time. And I just said, hey, what did your parents do to instill this love of reading? And she said, oh, we didn't have a TV. And that was kind of how it started. And so I was like, hey, Tyler, it was kind of this little experiment that now has lasted 14 years. So this is my kids, 4 of them. These were some sunflowers that we grew. And they built a little fort outside. And to me, this is like childhood, right? I mean, this is what it should look like. Outside, building forts, all the good stuff. And, you know, years later, fast forward years later, and this is what I'm starting to see. So, you know, my oldest was born in 2005, and that was before the iPhone came out. So iPhone comes out in 2007, and then pretty soon we're starting to see this. And then I had a cell phone of my own. And I just thought, what are we supposed to be doing? And then I started seeing headlines like this. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with this one. Have smartphones destroyed a generation? And I thought, what am I supposed to do? I'm going to go back to that for a minute. I'm actually going to flip back to me for just a minute. Oh, you don't see the slides right now? Let me hit stop. Presenter view, maybe that's what I need. I don't know. Yeah, I haven't had that issue before, so tell me now. Can you see it? Oh, someone. Okay. Okay. What about now? Okay, let's try. Okay, but you can't see the slides. Oh, that's weird. I wonder why. It was working before, right? Oh, so did you not? Okay. Oh, maybe when I share my screen, I need to pick something else. Okay. Okay, share screen. I'll do my entire screen, I guess. we'll try this. Thanks, guys. Sorry. Just yell at me next time. Okay. Okay. Um, okay. Did you see this picture or no? Okay. All right. Sorry, you guys. Okay. So, well, here's the picture. If you didn't see it before, that is the ghetto antenna. Yep. And here's my kids doing the fort. This is what childhood is supposed to be. And then this is what I started seeing, right? And just like most of us, and this headline, have smartphones destroyed a generation? So at this point, then I really just kind of started parenting from a place of fear, because I was the epitome of low tech mom. Like, I took my kids to the library. I sent my kids outside, and it's not that my kids never used a screen. Like, we had a desktop computer, and they would get on there and, do stuff and here and there. But for the most part, like, I was pretty conscientious about it. So, I really did. I just started parenting from a place of fear. And that then fast forward a few years later, and we moved from Illinois to Oregon. And can you guys still see me on the, okay, just making sure, trying to talk to two screens. Where do I look? We moved from Illinois to Oregon. And at that time, it was an unexpected move. My husband actually got laid off. It was really just not part of the plan. And so we took a new job. And when we moved here, my oldest was in middle school. So tricky age, right? And she had just left friends behind. And it was kind of that age where people started giving their kids phones. And I also just wasn't sure. I didn't know anyone here. I sent her on the bus. We didn't even have like a place to live. The housing is really hard to find here. And so, and it was in the middle of a crazy winter. So I just handed her an abandoned iPhone that we had and gave that to her. And then it didn't take long for me, really, just like within like 6 months, I realized I had made a huge mistake. And then, this is pre-Gab phones. So before we had any phones that didn't have social media and all the apps and things that are available. And so we went back to a brick phone. And that was really hard, but I was still kind of parenting from this place of fear. I started reading all the books, the Glow Kids, and I could tell it just wasn't helping anybody. So I want to just talk a little bit more about parenting from a place of confidence, but as well, okay, I'm going to flip my screen here. This might be a little hard to see on Instagram. I'll try, but I think one thing that parents ask me a lot is just like, how do I know when screen time's a problem? So there are a lot of indications, and I'll just kind of quickly go through it. But if they're just like wanting to jump from one screen to the next, and when I say that, like they're on the TV and then they want to go get an iPad, or you say, oh, your time's, you're done with your homework, and they immediately want to go watch TV. They frequently melt down when they have to get off a screen. They're moody and irritable if they don't get time on devices. The screen's like the first thing that they want to do in the morning. That's not a good sign. Last thing they want to do before they go to bed. They're always asking to use tech, and they get really upset when the answer is no. They're unable to entertain themselves, and they can't just be bored. They'll choose to use tech over interacting with people on a consistent basis. Their health is suffering. Like, parents will say, well, is it really a problem? And if your son or daughter is losing sleep, they're not eating, they're not moving their body because the screen time is just getting in the way, like, of the basics, that's a real issue. And then last, just the screen seems to be sucking away their childhood and pushing them into adulthood. And that's honestly, for me, that was one of my biggest signs. And I know, like, I'm using the term addiction, and I know that's a strong word, and it's not really a technical scientific term of addiction, but it is like kind of how we start to feel, and we start seeing our kids, this kind of stuff all the time. It's not really addiction, but everybody's just on their screens. So decided to take a new approach. And this was actually a picture I took of our family 3 years ago. So I realized, okay, how do we do this? How do we parent from a place of confidence? And this really goes into what Brick is talking about of having conversations with our kids. And you might call this family council, you might call it a family meeting, you might call it, whatever. But the reality is that we kind of have to start talking to our kids about technology. And this is where we started. So this is actually one of our very first posters, and you can't see the whole thing, but this gives you an idea. We did a thumbs up and a thumbs down list. And I just asked my kids, I said, hey, guys, what do we love about tech? And we made this huge list of thumbs up. And then I said, okay, what do we need to watch out for? What are the things we need to be careful of? And your kids will know. If you sit down and do this with your kids, they'll know. And this works for all ages, and everybody can jump in. And I guess I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a minute, if I can do that here. Oh, thanks. Okay, making it easy for me. Yeah. I'm just going to talk now for a minute and not use the slides, but so after we had that conversation, it was what I think the power of it is that we talked about the power of discernment. And I learned that from Richard and Linda Eyre. They're like parenting experts. But Richard wrote this really amazing article that I found in the paper. And he talked about how we can like wring our hands about technology and be all panicked about it. Or we can decide that this is an opportunity to teach our kids and to teach them the power of discernment. And that is a skill that they can learn to discern between good and bad. And what that is in your house might look completely different than what it looks like in my house. And that's okay. But that's the power of these conversations with our kids, is talking about what is okay in our house. And so that next conversation is we actually build a family tech plan. We talk about, where will we use screens? What are we going to do on them? How long are we going to use them? And that's when you start to build those digital fences or those boundaries that you can create as a family. And just real quick, like from personal experience, I had to change some of my habits first. And that's where it starts. Parents ask me all the time, like, how can I change my kid? And it's just like the saying goes, you be the change that you want to see. And I decided, hey, if I don't want my kids to take the screen in the bedroom, then I guess I better not take my screen in the bedroom. And so that was part of our family tech plan, of deciding we were going to take screens in the bedroom. And we have one phone, my husband's phone, that he plugs in right before bed. And that's an emergency phone. And that is to be used for an alarm clock, but he doesn't use it in the bedroom. Whereas, back in the day, he did sometimes watch some YouTube videos. He doesn't use social media, so that's not a temptation for him. But what I found was that then suddenly my bedroom became a sanctuary, and it was a place for me to rest. It was a place for a relationship. It was a place for me to rejuvenate and to relax. And now, like, my work doesn't go into my bedroom with me, because a lot of us today, our work is on our screen. And so the minute that comes in the bedroom, then that boundary isn't there. And then I think what is awesome is when you start to see, you have these conversations with your kids, and then you start to see the effects later on. So just like 2 nights ago, my 2 teen daughters share a bedroom. And I heard them in there just like giggling and laughing. This is 10:30 at night. And of course I'm like, trying to go to bed. That would not be happening if they both had cell phones in their bedroom. It wouldn't happen. And it's just, and so those are the gifts that we give our kids. We give our kids when we create some boundaries, but we have to create those boundaries with them. And I really, when I started this, I watched Simon Sinek's TED Talk, Start With Why. And that gave me a lot of motivation to help my kids start with why, like why we need to have these boundaries. And especially teenagers, they like to know why. They don't love just like, this is what's going to happen. They're like, why? But why? Why should I do that? And so when you sit down and have these talks, then you're giving them the opportunity to express how they're feeling, but also you're getting to talk about why those boundaries are important. And slowly but surely, our oldest has more freedom on a device than she once did, but that's been a very gradual process. And so I think, when our kids are really young, that is just this sweet spot. It's just this, they're so moldable, and we have so much control over like leaving the screens out. And then as our kids age, we step into that mentorship role where we're really mentoring them. And eventually they're going to leave the house and they're going to have all the access that they want. So we want to teach them those skills now. So those are just some thoughts. I could talk more, but I'll end there. And I just think there's a lot of power in conversations with our kids. And the relationship that I have with my daughter now, that's 16, is just like so much better than it was 3 years ago when I had to take that phone away, and it was super hard. I learned a lot, but it was so worth it.
Good
so
heavens.
Yeah.
Oof.
Wow, that's awesome. So many things. Nate, do you want to start or?
Well, I bet there's a ton of parents listening right now. They're like, oh my gosh, I am the worst. And it's just like, so many parents, we're all scared. And I love how you talked about removing ourselves from that place of fear and entering into that place of love. That's huge. Oh my gosh, it's so big.
Yeah, I can't even imagine taking that phone away and the relationship. How you probably felt like that. Oh, I just destroyed everything by giving her that phone for 6 months, right?
Yeah, lots of tears.
But I think that the key was, and you talked about how if she was going to be held to those standards, you were going to hold yourself to those standards. And so when you took that away, you did it together, which I think was key, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so you probably were very vocal. Well, I'm doing this too.
Yeah.
And so we're going to do this together. And so, she probably saw that it wasn't just something you were forcing on her, which I think that's key, right?
Yeah, it's totally key. And as you sit down with your family and you are making these decisions, like this is how we're going to use screens, not you, it changes the whole dynamic of the conversation.
Well, and I could I'm looking, I got 3 boys and they're so serious, and I'm sitting there thinking, okay, I sit down with them and I said, okay, we're going to talk about phone restrictions. And I can just see the youngest one sitting there 9 years old because he doesn't have a phone. He's just like, I am actually going to make rules that are going to take power from mom and dad, right?
Yes.
So I just totally see him thinking, okay, and the thing is that he doesn't know is he's going to be held to those same rules when he does get his first phone, So I think that's just so perfect because they can't complain. They were the ones that pointed out the problem. They were the ones that pointed out the solution. And we're going with what you taught us. You taught us, parents, how to help you.
And I mean, yeah, guys, it is going to be a fight a little bit, first couple of days, a little bit.
For the older kids, times. Yes.
Yeah, those kids that are used to having that, taking that away, there will be tension and a little bit of fight at first. But man, they're going to thank you later.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll never forget when I was going through this, I actually went and talked to the middle school principal because he would send stuff home in the newsletters, and he would send like our links from Common Sense Media. And I was just like, I think we're on the same page. And even though I know in other ways we're completely different, I just said, can I come talk to you? Because his youngest, he had 4 kids. His youngest was the same age as my oldest. So I said, does your son have a cell phone? And he was like, no. And this was 6th or 7th grade. And I said, don't you get any pushback for that? And he was like, every day. And I was like, okay. And he just taught me like that is part of parenting. And when it comes to tech, we have to put those boundaries in place. But if the love's there and the relationship's there, then, that's how we can make it work. So.
Well, I love that some of those pictures you showed this amazing family dynamic, right? Because when I talk about the trauma that comes from the little things, when you don't have your social circle, it doesn't matter if your kids have a social circle at school, they know they have that safe social place at home. Because, I mean, you take the tech away, the kids, they're bored. What are they going to do? Well, they're going to eventually play together, build forts,
Yes.
learn how to hammer a nail, go fall off the bike, whatever it is. But I think that that's also that key element that you're doing psychologically for them, apart from just the danger that comes from tech, but it's forcing them into that other social realm.
Yeah, exactly, which has been very needed. My kids my middle schoolers just started school here in Oregon, been home for a year. And I mean, yeah, not a lot of socialization going on. It's been a lot of together time.
That's awesome. Well, if we don't have anything else, Nate, I'm excited to hear what you've got and share with us the insights and the amazing. I'm really excited for it. Words can't even express it right now. So I'm going to turn the time over to Nate. Let's see what you got for us, my friend.
Okay. So I want to start off, guys, with some stats. So a few days ago, Christy Kane, she presented to the counselors in our district. I'm a school counselor in Utah, and so I'm in the high schools with kids every day to help them with their short-term or long-term crises that they're facing. Now, so my thing is Bullies Be Gone. I started that back in 2018 to serve as a platform to advocate for kids who are getting bullied. Or kids who are facing unkindness in their lives. Because 90% of the time, kids aren't getting bullied. Someone was just unkind to them, and that sucks. And that's okay that it sucks. And then, it grew, and I love what I'm doing now. And so some interesting things, though. 1 in 5 kids, ages 13 to 18, have or will have a serious mental illness. 50% of all lifetime cases of mental illness begin at age 14. 37% of kids with mental health issues drop out of school, and 20% of those dropouts end up incarcerated. Last year, there were more teachers that walked out in 1 year alone than any time in history. And then 90% of all individuals at the school, so parents and students and teachers alike, agreed that social emotional learning is more important than it has been taught. An average classroom of 25, at least 5 people are dealing with trauma. And then what is the common factor through all of this? Social media. Surprise, surprise. 73% of girls admit that they send inappropriate pictures of themselves to others, while 90% of boys admit that they send inappropriate pictures of themselves to others. Resource officers, when asked what the top 3 issues that they have to deal with countrywide, the very tippy top: sexting, bullying, and vaping. So it's no secret. Our kids are struggling right now. And we definitely need to learn how to help them through it. Now, I love what you guys talked about, how we can turn our trauma into gains, how we can set some healthy boundaries with our tech, because our tech, specifically social media, is tearing our kids down, one self-esteem at a time. And so I'm going to share my experiences as I grew up getting bullied. Physically, emotionally, cyberly, everythingly, and how I was able to get past it and become better and not bitter. Because that's what the choices that we have when we face adversity. And if we want to help raise resilient kids, we ourselves need to learn how to become better and not bitter. So starting when I was in kindergarten, I got glasses. They were so thick. It made my eyes so big. We're not talking like, oh, your eyes are kind of big. We're talking like, yo, I can see the man on the moon. Like, it was so big, okay? Like, Kolob, I can see you anyway. And so I became a target because I looked different. And some people were threatened by that. And so at first it was just name calling. And then it escalated. In first grade, I got shoved off the slides because the glasses kid can't participate at the playground. In 5th grade, people told me to go inside because no one wants to play kickball with me. And so when I went inside to just slump in my chair like kids do when they're mad, one of the kids who had followed me inside held a pen underneath me as I slumped down. And so a ballpoint pen went up my rear end a little bit. That didn't feel great. In 6th grade, we were at play practice after school. I had scouts after play practice. I was in my full Class A uniform, the necktie and everything. 4 8th graders grabbed me, one arm to each person, a leg to each person, threw me in the trash can. When I was in 8th grade, we were at football practice. One of the captains came up behind me, kicked me swiftly between the legs. I dropped like a sack of flour, and then the 3 captains held me down while everyone else took turns. It was hard. It hurt so much. And through all of this, I remember laying on the ground, taking kick after kick, not even trying to resist anymore. And the only thing I could think of to say was, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What did I do wrong? Because I honestly believed that I deserved what I was getting, because no one just treats other people like that, right? Well, I learned that no, people don't just treat each other like that. Hurt people hurt people. And that's really, really hard for little kids to comprehend. And so as I'm going through all these hard experiences, I thought, well, maybe if I change myself just a little bit, maybe if I alter who I am and act a little bit more like these people, maybe they'll accept me a little bit more. And so I started acting like they did. And I started maybe being a little less kind, maybe telling more crass jokes. I was becoming someone who I wasn't proud of to impress a group of people I didn't even like, just to get their acceptance. And it didn't go well. Spoiler alert, don't do it. It doesn't work out. And through all of this, my parents are standing by. They're seeing their boy hurting, but every time they try to help, it seems like it made things worse. Well, one day, it was after homecoming parade, freshman year. Right before the parade, some juniors threw me in a dumpster. And then I had to march through the rest of the parade after getting out of the dumpster. My dad sat down with me and he asked me a question. And that question changed the trajectory of my life. And it really is one of the foundations of what I do now. He asked me, do you know who you are? And at first I was like, Dad, are you okay? Because I hope you know who I am, because you've been dealing with me for 14 years. And he's like, no, I mean, do you know who you are? Because it sounds like you're allowing the words of other people to define who you are. And I was like, wait a second. And I realized I was allowing the opinions of 10 to 15 insecure people to totally dictate my happiness, to choose who I was. Kids these days, right now on social media, any given point, people are comparing and using social media, the opinions of hundreds of other people, to define who they are. And you wonder why they're unhappy and depressed, because they don't think they can live up to the hundreds of people that they see online, the fake perfect lives that they see, because they don't know who they are. I didn't know who I was. I'm like, Dad, how do I figure that out? I don't know what I'm doing. He's like, join the club. No, he didn't say that. But what he did say was that you get to choose who you are. And I thought, okay, who do I want to be? And maybe align myself with who I want to be. Maybe make my actions match who I want to be. I want to be someone who's respectful. I want to be someone who's nice, someone who people think are kind. And as I was able to choose for myself who I was, it didn't matter what other people said, because that couldn't change the truth of what I knew. It couldn't change the truth of I knew who I was, and nothing they could do or say would change it. I remember one day as a junior, one of the seniors pushed me up against the wall and said, go find some friends. You're dumb. And I just kind of sighed. I'm like, man, I'm sorry. That's not me. Because I know who I am. But maybe, just maybe, you don't know who you are. And maybe, just maybe, that's why you're taking it out on me. And his face was just kind of like, you usually don't get this kind of reaction. And right now, how can we help our kids realize who they want to be? Because if they know for themselves who they are, it won't matter who they see on Instagram. It won't matter who they see on TikTok. It won't matter, because they know for themselves who they are, and they won't allow themselves to be sucked down into the toxicity that is social media. They won't follow those accounts that make them feel bad. They'll choose to actively participate in things that make them feel good, not bad. They'll delete TikTok because it's garbage, and they'll allow themselves to feel gratitude. One sec. The janitor's asking me if she wanted to vacuum in the office. I said, no, thank you. I'm in my office at the school. So we're trying to help kids figure out who they are. Because if we don't help them, the internet is going to tell them. So a challenge to us is, are we able to love our kids louder than the internet can hate them? Because if we can love our kids louder than the internet can hate them, they'll choose us over the internet any day of the week. Because they know that we are the ones that give them true love. They will know that human interaction will give them more love than some fake blue screen ever will. But it's got to start with us at the home. As I figured out who I was, and it didn't hurt as much when they said stuff because I knew, well, they were wrong, stuff still happened. And so it was important for me to focus on what I could control and focus on what I did have. Because the light seems so much brighter in your life when you focus on the good things that are there. I didn't have a whole lot of friends. I didn't have all the name brand stuff. I didn't have like the cool things like iPods. Those were cool back then. Promise, guys. I didn't have those things. I did have a loving family. I still do. I didn't have to worry about where my next meal was coming from. I had clothes on my back, even though they weren't name brand. Once I started thinking, I had so many more things to be thankful for than the things that I didn't. And if we can teach our kids, the grass isn't greener on the other side. The grass is greener where we water it. And so if we choose to focus on the things that we can control and the things that we do have, I could not control the actions of other people, what they did to me and what they said to me. I couldn't control them, but I could control me and how I treated other people. See, everyone else is so concerned with things they can't control. They're so concerned with how many people are going to like my post, how many people are going to share my content, how many people are going to make me feel special because of something online. How many times is mom and dad going to post about me because they only post about me when I succeed? When in actuality, they can feel grateful and only put the actions of them on themselves, meaning they don't have to have the weight of the world on their shoulders anymore. And they can feel something that they probably haven't felt in a long time called happiness, because they're allowing their actions to be theirs. Their wins are their wins, and someone else's win is not their loss. So many people nowadays see other people's wins as their loss because we're in a all for all, kill for all situation on social media. Kids are playing video games where they have to kill each other. People are on social media where they're at each other's necks. I think if we distance ourselves from that and taught our kids a little bit more about just how good life actually is, real life. And so know who you are. Focus on what you can control and what you do have. But then lastly, just serve other people. If you're having a bad day, if you're feeling super down because you've seen all the different things on all the different platforms and got you feeling all sorts of insecure about yourself, put down your phone and find someone who has it worse than you, because they are there. There's a kid who got bullied a lot worse than I did. I'm from Blanding, Utah. Everybody's a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, aka Mormons. Everybody. And this kid was atheist, and he got bullied bad. So bad, he moved back home with his grandma to Oregon. And my senior year, his sophomore year, he moved back. And I remember one day I was sulking because people hadn't invited me to hang out. And I was feeling mad. I was like, come on, I thought these people were my friends and they're all hanging out and now I'm not. And my dad just asked me, hey, when's the last time you thought about someone else? And I was like, ouch, burn, yeesh. And then I was scrolling social media and I saw that this kid was coming back into town. And I'm like, man, I will not let this kid feel the same way I did. And so we threw together a little party. His parents worked at the college and I got them in on it. The cross country team came in on it. We had a bunch of treats and stuff and we surprised them and it was so fun. And for that time that I was more worried about helping someone else out, I totally forgotten that I was bummed out because some people hadn't asked me to hang out. I had completely forgotten that 2 days prior, 15 of my classmates got together on Facebook and all messaged me telling me that I should kill myself. I'd completely forgotten about all those things because I was more concerned about helping someone else than complaining about how I have it bad. We all have trials, guys. We're all going to face them. Our kids are going to face them. But if we can choose to serve other people, if we can show them that serving other people is going to help them a lot more than focusing on the bad parts of their life, it's going to help things so much more. So know who you are. Help your kids know who they are. Love them louder than the internet can hate them. Help them focus on what they do have and what they can control. And then teach them to serve other people. And that's how you can help make your kid a little bit more resilient in these untroubling times.
Awesome. That is awesome. Thank you so much, Nate, for really just kind of enlightening us. As you're speaking, I was thinking, I think it was Brene Brown that gave this TED Talk. And well, first somebody put a comment that says they are a child of God. That was Monica A. Marquez, which I think is awesome.
And, yes.
You know, and that's actually, I love that statement because that's one of my primary teaching points that I teach, because I teach a lot within the LDS church, but even outside of that. But Brene Brown said in a TED Talk something that was very interesting, and it goes to show that it doesn't really matter if you're, if you believe God, if Christ, or you're Muslim, whatever it is. She gave the statistic. And she said that they did a bunch of research. These statistics, what are those people are that
statisticians?
Statisticians. Yeah. There you go. See, you know the big words. They did this study and they came up with the odds of somebody being born in the house they live in, to the family they live in, with the genetic makeup they have, the characteristics, the personality trait, all of it that makes us us. The odds of us actually ending up where we're at, who we are, and everything like that is 1 in 400 trillion. Now, wow, that's insane when you think about it. Yeah. Now, if you bring a faith-based belief into that, and you take out of the fact that God doesn't play in odds, he doesn't roll the dice, it's not a game of chance, that you were placed where you're at for 1 in 400 trillion reasons why you weren't, why nobody else was, right? That's that understanding that you're unique, you're special, you're important, everything like that. The biggest problem that I think you hit on talking to these parents is that parents have to understand that about themselves before their children will ever believe it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the key.
Yep.
So that was powerful. Thank you.
That really was. I love too the focus on gratitude and service, because I think those are two principles that can transcend any, no matter like what you believe, what your beliefs are. I think those are two just sound principles that any of us can live and apply in our lives. And just, I know that's something that as I was really preparing my daughter, and we have a course called Untangling Teens in Tech, and I was kind of preparing her for a little bit more freedom on a device. One of the things that we focused on was gratitude and just expressing that every day. And it can help our kids so much now, especially like you said, they've got that. They know what everybody else is doing. They know what they have, which party they haven't been invited to. And that sense of just feeling grateful for what we have can help them, not just now, but as we know, for the rest of their lives. So I love that.
Yeah, powerful stuff. I think the key here, that one of the key takeaways that we're talking about here tonight, all of us, is that technology is stealing our children's identity. It's really stealing who they are, and we're allowing it to happen. And when you lose that identity, that's where everything happens. The trauma happens, the isolation, the aloneness, when they see that they're not invited to a party, when they're attacked by somebody who's a bully, everything falls apart. And I think that's key. And I think, Nate, you hit it on the head. They just got to know who they are.
Well, and it's creating identity for them before they even know who they are.
Yeah.
I mean, if you turn on the internet, they're in a world shouting loser.
Yeah.
How many times are they going to be called a loser until they believe it?
Well, and it's not even, and the way that they're being called a loser is sometimes it is a direct attack, and other times it's they're seeing the other person and everything they have in this perfect, picture perfect Instagram world and thinking, I could never be that.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. They see the things and compare themselves. Oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not pretty as so-and-so. I'm not this airbrushed model. I don't have all these different things. My life isn't as good as what they do. I can't post this. I don't have that phone. And they just see their life as lesser and lesser and lesser.
Yeah,
the craziest part
totally.
about the craziest part about that is the worst attacker we have is ourselves. And as soon
Yeah.
as the kid sees that I can never be that way and says it out loud, it's even worse. Right?
Yeah. Well, and I think that is just one of the primary reasons to keep technology away for a long time, just because they're trying to figure out who they are. They've got to go out and scrape their knee and all those things. But then at some point, yes, we start mentoring, we start teaching them. But this is the other thing I teach a lot is about a strong sense of self. And if your teen hasn't developed that strong sense of self, that self-identity, I know who I am, let's hold off on that smartphone. Let's hold off on social media, because that has got to be in place first before you move on to that step.
Okay, I'm going to jump in here.
Oh, go for it.
Nate,
Go for it.
oh, sorry, because I want to ask you to do something, Nate.
Okay.
Share with us what you do with your son every night.
So I've posted this reel a couple times. So it started ever since he was old enough where I had to brush his teeth. And the whole reason I did it is because, so when I brush his teeth, the little bugger won't hold still. So I lay him down between my legs and I put my big old fat thighs on top of both of his arms so he can't, and I squeeze his head between my thighs and I brush his teeth so he can't get away from me. And then he doesn't like that. That's a little traumatic a little bit for him. And so afterwards, I would stand him up in the mirror and I would just say, "You are strong and you are loved." And we say it 3 times, and he has a little noisemaker in the corner. We turn that on before he goes to bed. And I say it 3 times, and I'll hold the noisemaker and say, "And you will always be," and then he says, "Enough." Anyway, we did that for like a year straight. And then we kind of like stopped for a second just because toddlers are nuts. They're like freaking collegiate wrestlers when they're not wanting to change their diapers. Anyway, but one day we were going to a football game and we parked next to just a truck that had a lot of shiny stuff on it. I guess he could see his reflection, and he was on my shoulders and he just said, "Strong." And I'm like, yes, yes, it works.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we do that every night. And it's important for me to let him know that if nothing else, he knows that he is strong and he is loved and he will always be enough.
That's
I love
awesome.
that. Power of affirmations.
Yep.
So good.
Yeah. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I felt like that was just so appropriate. So if you were going to say something before I said that, but I wanted to hear that from you because I thought it was awesome.
No, you're good. You're good. I can't remember. It's good.
Well, I want to tell you why I love that story is because I had a teacher in high school that challenged me to look in the mirror for 30 days and come up with a new good thing about myself every day. And it was at the point where I was at depression-wise, borderline suicidal. Again, that I just wasn't worth anything. And there is power in hearing your own voice speak kindly about yourself. Mm-hmm. And there is so much danger in your own voice speaking the negative. Mm-hmm. And I think that we miss that. And if you watch your kids and you see them and they can't say a single good thing about themselves, I think that's an indication that you need to focus on helping them understand their identity. And ask that question Nate's dad asked, do you know who you are? And help them discover it. I think that's the key. And I think that's powerful.
I love that. What a great teacher. Love
Oh,
teachers.
thank you. I know. I'm an expert parent. I have a 2-year-old and a 4-month-old. Nope.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, hey, I think that we're kind of coming to the point where if anybody has any questions, they can shoot them out there, add a comment, Instagram Live, Facebook Live. We can kind of see what's going on. I'm not sure I'm seeing everything from Facebook. But I am seeing some stuff. So, but definitely any questions. If not, we can always sign off.
I'm going to.
You gonna jump on Facebook?
Yeah, I'm going to jump on Facebook and see if anyone's gotten any questions that they are posing.
Yeah, if anybody's got questions, just throw them in. If you're on Instagram, throw it in the comments. We're here for you.
Yes. Brick, did you post the link to the Facebook Live on your page?
It's on my professional page. I'm jumping there right now.
What's your professional page?
Yeah, or thoughts.
Okay.
If anybody even just has thoughts, if you don't have a question, but something maybe that resonated with you or that you want to take away from this to like do with your kids, or I mean, that's even helpful too, I think.
So there were a couple. How can you establish safe rules, boundaries with your children while also helping them learn autonomy and feel autonomous?
Ooh.
And then what are some examples of tech rules you have in your homes? So we kind of heard some of those. I don't know if you want to dive any deeper on those.
Yeah, well, I think just knowing what we know about child development and about the development of the brain, we know that the prefrontal cortex, that part of the brain that's responsible for decision making, isn't fully developed until we're in our 20s. And so knowing that, and knowing if you've watched The Social Dilemma or you've just been familiar with the way that tech companies are using tech often to manipulate us, then we've got those two things going against our kids. That means that really they can't be fully autonomous when it comes to screen time until they're much older. And I do think it's important to give them some freedom bit by bit, because they are going to, like my oldest is 16. She's going to be out of the house in a couple of years. And I believe in giving them some freedom and letting them learn. But again, that it's a gradual process, and it's one that we want to delay to really later middle school, early high school is when we're really kind of starting to allow a little bit more freedom. So that was one thought.
So we have a couple of questions that are basically the same. Monica said, what can I do to restrict some screen time to my 7, 10, 14-year-old? Then it says how to handle things when almost all your friends have kids with phones and social media accounts, and your kid is thought differently about not having all this stuff.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I know a couple kids here in the high school who don't have cell phones. And contrary to popular belief, they're not missing out on that much because their friends still have ways to contact them. And so a lot of the fears that teens and parents have about ditching smartphones or getting less and less and less on them, they're based in fear that isn't true, because it's not. It'll be hard at first, but I don't know. Just rip off the Band-Aid and make it happen.
And Andrea did that. I can tell you that when it comes to the restrictions for older teens, like you're talking social media accounts and stuff like that. So I've got a 14-year-old daughter, and she is amazing. Her nickname is Smiley, and she has received that from various individuals that didn't even know that she was receiving this name. And she wanted a social media account. And so my wife, being just smart about it, she took her, and at the time, Colin Karchner was putting a lot out there about the dangers of social media. And she says, I want you to read some of these things going on with social media. And before she let her even talk about an account, we kind of followed Andrea's advice. We said, now that you see all that's wrong with social media, what do you think about social media? And not only did she say, I don't need social media, the next week she had a homework assignment about, I can't even remember how it came up. She wrote a whole essay on the dangers of social media.
Nice.
And she has not asked for it since, you know?
Wow.
And so I think that there's power in that. It's the education. If you're talking about the phone situation, I live in Arizona, and we just got my son a Gabb wireless phone. So if you haven't seen these, they look exactly like, right? They're awesome. They look, I did, right? No, but they look exactly like a smartphone. So none of the kids around them are going to understand it. They receive text just like text messages, just like a smartphone. They just don't have any apps.
Yeah.
And so if you're, and they're insanely cost friendly.
Yeah.
It was $100 for the phone, and I think it's $20 or $25 a month. I think it's 25 with the text messaging and everything like that.
Yeah.
Which is less than what I pay with Verizon, and it's on the Verizon network. So if you've got that problem with your kids, because I know that came up, if you're asking about 16, 17-year-olds, it's just been a great solution for that. I don't know, Andrea, you probably have some other insights with teenagers and whatnot that you have, but.
Yeah. We use the Gabb phone for our middle schoolers, and we bought one of the first 100 phones because that was kind of, had done all the research and really advocate for them. I do talk to a lot of parents, and there are kids who are like, I'd rather not have a phone if I have to have a Gabb phone. And that is a reality. But again, you give them the choice. And it's like, this is, I think, educating and talking about what are the dangers. Why do I not want you to have social media yet? And okay, I guess if you don't want a phone, that's your choice. Like giving them some choices is always good. I think someone asked how to handle things when almost all your friends have kids with phones and social media accounts and your kid is thought different. I can speak to that because I've done different forever. And so kids came into my house and were like, where's your TV? And I was like, it's in the closet. And I never even thought about it. And they were like, that's weird. You're weird. And, so I think it is hard. It is like, I don't negate that it can be hard for our kids to be different and to not have all the things. I mean, when my daughter was a freshman and didn't have Instagram on her phone, they were getting together for a homecoming thing. And the only way they were telling the freshmen where to meet and when was on Instagram. And I thought, well, I told her, I'll follow it. I'll follow the Instagram page and I'll let you know. But they would post it like 2 hours before, and I'm busy mom, and we would miss the stuff. And it was really hard. It was hard for me to watch. It was hard for my daughter. She didn't make the practices, so then she just didn't do it. And she felt really left out. So, I mean, there's no denying some of that. Some of it is just hard. But I think having those conversations about this is why we're choosing this. And it doesn't mean never, just as not right now. And I like using that a lot. And we're going to prepare you to have more freedom on a device too.
Well, and I think the key there is the self-regulating, because we had a question there, how to handle things when, we saw that. Let's see. There was one about an Xbox. Well, and
yeah, they can get past the parental controls on the Xbox. And she said mostly due to screen time, by the way. We have an adult filter on our router. I don't know.
I think where that comes in is that self-regulation that Andrea's talking about. It's hey, this is why, this is the importance to it. I have a son that I think it's also about setting the restrictions and standards and holding tight to them. I've talked to a psychologist about this. And so I have a son that we took away everything. We put restrictions on his school computer because he's got to do school on the computer, but he was getting off and going to sites and getting distracted. And so we put a lot of restrictions through our router for that computer. Well, what does he do? He uses his phone's hotspot. So we made a rule. This is the rule. If we see you using your phone's hotspot, your phone is ours for X amount of time. And it's just consistency. And talking to him about trust. So when he did break that trust, it wasn't so much we're taking the phone because you're bad. It's, hey, we're really disappointed you broke our trust. but because of that, we don't have a choice. This is a decision you are making for us that we got to take it away.
Well,
That's to me is
decision
parenting.
And it's a decision that they made back when when Andrea talks about when we make our plans as a family, how it's a full family event where everyone gets the input. And so when they break the rules, they chose they chose the consequence. And so it makes that a lot easier. So a lot of these people are asking questions about how do I manage screen time with this, or how do I, manage this with that. A lot of it can just boil down to the rules that you make as a family together, that you all follow and that you all agree upon. Because if you guys can find something that everybody agrees upon, it's going to be a lot easier for those things to be followed.
Yeah. For some reason, Nate, your audio's kind of jumbled for me. Is it that way for you, Brooke?
It is. I could understand and hear, but your screen's a little bit blurry too, so it might just be something going on with your connection. But
okay,
I heard what you were saying, but Andrea, go on. Little.
Maybe it will catch up here in a minute. It's like kind of freezing.
It's awesome because I can see what he's doing on Facebook, and Instagram is frozen. So he's over here dancing on Facebook, but Instagram is just a screen that's kind of blurry.
Yeah, it's awesome. Blurry. Well, we'll keep rolling with it. Yeah, I mean, someone said my son's so frustrated because kids don't check their iMessages anymore. They only look at Snapchat, and that's so true. When I was interviewing for a course in Tangling Teens in Tech, I had many parents tell me that, she said, I actually one mom said, I tested this with my son. He sent a text. Nobody answered, nothing. 10 minutes later, she said he sent the same message a minute later from Snapchat. And within seconds, people had responded. And so there is a reality there of associating with your friends and connecting and the platforms that they're using. So that is real. It's really challenging.
And I don't think we have a solution to that. I think that the only solution is, hey, which one of your friends in this group is your closest friend in the group? And can you tell them, hey, I can't have Snapchat. My parents won't let me. So if you get a message on Snapchat, will you just let me know? I think that's the only way around it. So.
Yeah. And that's relying on good friends. And I know that was one of the challenges for us when my daughter was a freshman, is she didn't have that strong friend group. And so because I even told her, I said, can't somebody just tell you when they're all meeting? And there really wasn't anyone that was doing this activity that she was close enough to, that she was just feeling kind of shy about it. And that hurts. That's hard. But if your kids can have just one or two close friends, even, that can keep them connected and in the loop. I mean, and really that's what a true friend is, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
and is my audio still wacky?
It's a lot clearer. It's better. Okay. Yeah.
I started charging my phone. Maybe that's what was wrong. I unplugged it. But I was gonna say that if you're sometimes, as we try to transition our kids away from social media and screens and things like that, we see the improvements in them, and then we also hurt because we see that it might be affecting them socially. I had an instance where a kid was telling me how he was hanging out with his friends. They were all on their phones, and he wanted to be with them. And I said, well, does it make you wonder if they're really your friends? I mean, it's a hard pill to swallow, but it does help you see that maybe you're not with people that are aligned with you as much as you think. And while it might hurt a little bit, it'll help you find people that align more with you in the long run. And so, yeah, you might lose some friends, or you might choose to walk away from certain groups of people because of the way they make you feel, because you're noticing things you didn't notice before. And that's okay.
Yeah. And that comes back to just knowing who you are. So that's awesome. Real quick, I think it's lots of tea and cake. You were the one that had the son with the Xbox, and you put something there that made me remember. When I looked at that, I think Xbox gives at 16 years old, gives the kid like free reign. And I think that's where you're getting into problems. We actually went in and we turned my 16-year-old, we actually took his Xbox away, so he doesn't have it anymore. No video games at all for any of our kids right now, at all. It's all locked away. But before we did that, I think we went in and we changed his date of birth. So Xbox saw him as a 14-year-old, and it allowed us to put those parental locks on there where he couldn't change them. And I think that's the case, but you may want to look into it. But if that's the case, just make him a 10-year-old, make him a 12-year-old or whatever on Xbox, and then he just can't make those changes. So
that's really good advice. Away. And then you yeah. Well, and then you have that conversation of like, what does this look like down the road then if you can be responsible, like giving them some goals and things to work toward, that, you know, then when you act old enough, then you're 16 again on the Xbox.
There you go.
That's awesome. There are some other questions that came up on Facebook, but in full disclosure, it's my mother.
Are you serious?
No, my parents are some of my greatest support groups. They go to every single speaking event I've ever done. Well, unless I'm traveling, because I'll travel to different states to do it. So they don't do those ones, but they'll get in a car and drive for 3 hours for me for a speaking event in Northern Arizona or something like that. They're awesome.
Oh, that's amazing.
So the only other question I saw was from my mother. But she says, what are some signs that your kid might be dealing with trauma, and what can parents do to safely open up a conversation with them about it? And I only just want to touch on this real quick. The dealing with trauma, the trauma thing is basically you will see it in their diet will change. They won't eat as much. They'll want to be withdrawn. That's one of the biggest things is if they start withdrawing, especially into their phone, and hiding their phone a little bit. Sometimes we think they're hiding their phone because they're seeing something that like pornography or something like that. And it's sometimes they just don't want us as parents to see that they're being hurt. But you know, it's the less activity. They just become more and more drained. They become almost zombie-like. Any change in the normal behavior, you want to see the signs for. But I'm going to tell you right now that you can't go in and open a conversation with that child if you have not established something before then. If you have not worked on your relationship, for you to come in when the relationship is not there to try to help them, it's an uphill battle. So the big thing is you start now. You start trying to have conversations with them, that connection with them, and really trying to make sure that they have a social strength and strong point.
If you're not sure where
if you don't have that relation,
you're good.
What was it? You're breaking up again.
I know. Sorry. I unplugged my phone again.
No,
I was just gonna say, if you don't know where to start, I am talking. I think it is working. Okay, we're good. So I was just gonna say, if you don't know where to start, like, because you're like, where am I going to open things up? I'm trying to work on the relationship. Just start with a walk or go on a car ride. If you're in a situation where you guys are side by side instead of face to face, it's a lot more lax. And then just ask and talk to them. And by talk to them, I mean just shut up and listen to them. And you'll be way surprised what comes out.
Yeah. It's finding something that, I mean, a drive for my kids, they love board games. So put your own phone away, put your own time aside, and go play a board game. Go for a walk. If your kid likes to go fishing, go fishing. Do what makes them happy, and that's going to start you down that road. If they're already in that state where they're struggling, it's just a matter. It's about reaction. If your child comes to you and says, hey, I'm being bullied, or hey, this is happening, and you explode or you make it a traumatic experience for them to tell you, they will never tell you again. It always has to be a nice, calm, hey, thank you so much for telling me. Let's talk about this, or let's go for a ride. Let's go buy some ice cream and have a conversation. Thank you. You know, it's about that. And if they tell you something that's hard for you to say, just say, hey, let's go do this. Let's go meet for ice cream in an hour, and you go for a drive and calm down. and then you come back and get them. You can say, look, I got to go take care of something. Let's go get some ice cream in an hour when I have time.
And you can be honest.
That's the thing. Yeah.
And you can be honest with them. Like if they drop a bomb on you, that's hard to hear. Like if your son tells you that they've been struggling with pornography, if someone told you that I screwed up with my significant other and we had sex or something like that, you can tell them, this is really hard for me to hear. I'm going to need to take a break and calm down. And then I want to talk to you when I have a chance to calm down. Because they need to see you're human, guys. They really need to see that you struggle with crap too. You're not some immortal, and your kids don't need a superhero. They need a person, and they need you to be their person.
Great advice. Great advice from a dad that only has a toddler. That's awesome. I appreciate it. I love it. So awesome. Well, I think that's all the questions, unless I've missed something that came up on Instagram. I saw everything that was on Facebook and YouTube. Anything else? Well,
I think we mostly covered it.
Okay. Do either of you have anything else you'd like to share before we sign off and say goodnight to everybody?
I guess my last thing would just be, if you're feeling really overwhelmed with all the technology and you feel like, there's a new thing every day that I have to worry about, just worry about your kids. Like at the end of the day, worry about your relationship with them, because that's what's going to save you. It's not knowing like what's the latest TikTok, what's the latest app that my kid wants to download. Like at the end of the day, that's all going to even out, but it's your relationship is really the thing that's worth preserving. And don't let the phone or whatever it is, don't let that become a wedge in your relationship. And that's the last thing that I would say.
Awesome.
Just in closing, parents, you are enough. As parents, you're doing your best and you're loving your kids. And that is all that they need is you. You are wonderful. You are worthy, and you are worth it. And so are your kids.
I want to jump on the bandwagon with both of them. I've so enjoyed tonight. I talked about that 1 in 400 trillion of you being where you're at this time, all that development. If you're faith-based, that means that there's purpose. It's not by chance. That also means that you are the parent of your child for a reason. If God is behind it, if you have faith in that and you understand that, that means that you have the tools in your arsenal to help your child better than anybody else out of that 400 trillion. You just have to have trust in yourself and trust to reach for the sources. If that's God, if that's mentors, if that's teachers at the school, whatever it is, the resources are there. But you have to understand that you're the ultimate resource for your child. And you are going to make the best decision for your child, because nobody loves your child like you love them. And so remember that, because that's powerful. But your kids need to know that as well. So my one thing I'm going to tell you is, don't ever let a day go where your kids go to bed without you saying, I love you. Because there is power in them knowing that and hearing that at the very end. Very much so. Before we go, just so you know, Nate Webb is at Bullies. Give him your Instagram again and whatever else you got.
So my Instagram, it's bulliesbegone, bulliesbe.gone.
And your podcast?
My podcast is called Teaching Kindness, the Bullies Be Gone podcast. It's on all podcast platforms. This recording, parts of it are going to be on the podcast.
And he interviews some amazing individuals, and that's how I met Andrea, is because he interviewed her on the podcast, right?
Yeah.
So he is making some amazing connections and has some amazing individuals on there. So go check out his podcast. Andrea, give us a little bit, your Instagram, the book, your website, everything.
Yeah. So betterscreentime.com. And our book is Creating a Tech Healthy Family. We have 2 courses. One is Creating a Tech Healthy Family. The other is Untangling Teens in Tech. I was a teacher before I was a stay-at-home mom, and that's where my passion lies. And I've always believed in the power of asking a good question and listening for the answer. And so I love those conversations, but that's where you can find me. And I'm just was really grateful to everyone for coming tonight and loved partnering up with Nate and Brick tonight.
Awesome. And again, my name is Brickman Allen or Brick Allen. I'm primarily a youth speaker. I've been doing it for 18 years, done over probably close to 200 events, and have just traveled all over the country doing it. Just love what I do, connecting with these amazing kids that we have that are teenagers, because they truly are amazing. And many times we miss that. I have a book that's in final stages for editing, does not even have a title, but it's a self-help book for children and teens, and kind of a unique spin on my own autobiography, with every chapter having a piece of what you can apply to your own life and how to better your own life from my own mistakes type of thing. So that you can find us all. My Instagram is just Brickman Allen. At Brickman Allen, it's just my name. I don't have any organization or foundation because I'm not cool enough yet, but I will get there someday. Because I want to be like I want to be like these two powerhouses. That's my goal, and I appreciate everything that they did for us. And for those of you that are here after an hour and 30 minutes, you are true warriors working for your kids. So thanks for joining us.
Yes.
Okay,
Awesome.
We'll see you all later.
Okay, thanks
Good night.
everybody.
Bye. End video. I
Okay,
did it.
so
It's
hold on,
over.
I'm going to end the broadcast and we can.
Oh, wait a minute. Now we got to get on